What's going on, guys? I am Tim Kelly. This is Phillies Stoplight for, we'll say, April 24th, and the Phillies have been swept out of New York. They are now 13-12 on the season, and in some senses, I guess Phillies fans should feel good about the fact that they're still above 500. It doesn't feel like the way there have been some ups and downs in April, that it doesn't feel like they're above 500. It feels like they're more in a situation where they're a few games under. They're above 500, so it hasn't been a disastrous April, but it was certainly a disastrous series in New York. Game 3 that just wrapped up, Zach Wheeler, Matt Strahm, Jose Alvarado all pitched well, and then Jordan Romano came in with the extra runner on. And I'll almost always give relievers a pass when the runner on second scores. But Pete Alonso drives a ball into the right field gap. That scores the runner on second. And then Starling Marte ultimately hits a bloop single into center field. I don't think it was a terrible inning for Jordan Romano, but there's no margin for error at this point with how he's pitched so far. He's not going to get the benefit of the doubt. I think if that was Jose Alvarado came in that situation and had the same performance, it's one of those that you say, get him next time. In a game like this where Jordan Romano has struggled and the vibes are already not great going into the game, considering you've lost 3 in a row and you've lost the first 2 of this series, he's not going to get that benefit of the doubt. And look, Jordan Romano, in my experiences, having covered him so far this season, very nice guy, hard worker. I don't think there's anything lacking in that department, but the results aren't good right now, and this is a results business. So I don't think there's any contemplation about DFAing him or anything anytime soon. In fact, Rob Thompson got asked back in, I think it was Sunday, when he met with the media before the game, he got asked about how long does it take you to evaluate a reliever, and I forget the exact number of games he said, but it came out to about a month and a half, 2 months. So Jordan Romano, at least at this time, I don't think is in any danger of the Phillies DFAing him. They made an $8.5 million investment in him. It would be crazy to give up on that after 1 month of the season, but it doesn't feel like this is headed in a good direction, and it feels like something drastic needs to happen to turn it around, and I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Also concerning, we talked about Sunday, Orion Kerkering in a bad outing. He had a bad outing Tuesday, so he's in a bit of a funk, and it shows you how little margin for error you have with Strahm, Alvarado, and Kerkering. If one of those guys isn't good, and specifically Kerkering, when you don't have another right-handed option outside of him right now that you really trust to take down high-leverage innings, you're in a tough spot. So there's the bullpen angle of it, of being swept. There's also the fact that the Phillies scored 8 runs in 3 games, and you're not going to win a lot of series scoring 8 runs in 3 games. In fact, in most cases, you're probably going to have the exact outcome the Phillies had here, which is getting swept. Certainly, you're going to lose the series. And Kyle Schwarber's in a little bit of a funk. I think you give him a pass on that in the sense that he got off to a quick start. It's Kyle Schwarber. You kind of feel comfortable knowing he's going to get going, particularly as we get closer to June. But in general, Trey Turner's having kind of a weird offensive season. He's got a .343 on-base percentage even after a not great series in New York, so that's good. But he's got only 1 home run and he's hitting .247, so it goes without saying they need more from him offensively. And there's just not a lot of energy with the Phillies right now, and to some degree that's to be expected when you're in a losing streak, but I don't know at any point this season that there's been a ton of energy offensively from them. And that's despite the fact Bryson Stott has been on a tear since going to the leadoff spot. Johan Rojas has hit really well the last week. You had Edmundo Sosa in the lineup yesterday, and he provides a spark almost every time he plays and had 2 hits and 3 at-bats yesterday. So he's like it feels like something's lacking, and I don't know exactly what that is. I know people joke and say they miss Garrett Stubbs, and no diss of Garrett Stubbs, but it's not that simple that they just call him back up and everything goes back to normal. But it does feel like they need a little bit of an injection. And that, to me, when you have a very similar team come back every year, that's kind of one of the risks that you run. Even though this group hasn't won a World Series together, you run the risk that maybe it gets stale at some point. And who knows if that's what's happened now or if this is just a funk and we'll look back in 6 weeks and barely remember it. But that's the Mets series. Interestingly, before the final game of the Mets series, Dave Dombrowski spoke to a few media members that included Destiny Lugardo of Phillies Nation, and he said he was asked about Jeff Hoffman, who obviously it's easy to contrast him and Jordan Romano right now. They essentially flip teams. Romano from Toronto and Hoffman to Toronto. So you have that aspect of it. They're both right-handed pitchers that rely on the slider and a fastball. So there's a lot of similarities. And I think naturally there were people frustrated in general. They didn't sign Jeff Hoffman because he was a great story, really good reliever the last few seasons, became a fan favorite, and it didn't feel like the Phillies ever got particularly close to signing him in the offseason. But Dave Dombrowski said, this is a quote, "We tried to sign Hoffman very aggressively. They turned down our offer, and he ended up signing they turned down our offer, and he ended up signing. At the time, he was still looking for more dollars, and we had a decision to make, Romano or somebody else, and we just didn't feel that we were going to match the dollars he was looking to get. But we were very aggressive in trying to sign him. I can't tell you that the number he signed for was substantially different than the number we ended up offering, but he just wasn't prepared to take it at that time. I think they thought they were going to get much more. And initially they were going to get much more because the Braves were going to sign him to, I believe it was a 5-year deal to be a starting pitcher. Then that fell through because of physical concerns. Then he was going to sign with the Orioles. I think that was over $40 million. That fell through because of physical concerns. And eventually he signs a 3-year, $33 million deal with the Blue Jays that includes incentives that I believe can take it up to something like $41 million. So, look, I get the risk. I get why people, especially if the Phillies had any inkling about some of these physical concerns, why you'd maybe be hesitant to sign a multi-year deal with a reliever beyond the normal reasons why you have to be hesitant to sign a reliever to multiple years. I get that. But I don't get why Jordan Romano was the only option signed. Like, I get signing Jordan Romano. He was an all-star, 95 saves, 2021 to 2023. I get taking a risk on him as a bounce back. I don't think he could be your only guy when you're talking about replacing Hoffman and Estevez. And yes, they expected Orion Kerkering to take a step forward, and until these last couple outings, it looked like he was meeting that moment. But Orion Kerkering was still a pretty key part of the bullpen last year, so then you're left to replace him. Jose Ruiz hasn't done well this season. Carlos Hernandez has great stuff and no idea where the ball's going often. So I think the plan in the offseason was flawed. It was fine to sign Jordan Romano as your number 2 reliever, and I don't think that Jeff Hoffman necessarily had to be the guy, but it couldn't just be you're signing one guy. When you're signing someone on a prove-it deal, there's a chance they don't prove it, and so far that's what's happened. This is a guy that pitched 15 games last year, had elbow issues. By all accounts, he's healthy now, but it's been a disaster to start the season, and perhaps that will turn around. But it's natural for people to say they should have signed Jeff Hoffman, and Anthony Sanfilippo wrote this on Pattison today. Why didn't they circle back with Jeff Hoffman? If he was willing to take the deal that they eventually, or something similar to what they offered him, and I know for a fact, having talked to Jeff Hoffman, that he wanted to stay in Philadelphia, and to a degree, everybody's going to say that, and you have to use your judgment. I think he really wanted to stay in the area. He's from New York. He kind of made his name here. I think he wanted to stay with the Phillies, and so I think if the offers were close, there's a good chance he would have taken it. If the Phillies came through with a 3-year, $31 million offer as opposed to $33 from the Blue Jays, I think maybe he takes the Phillies offer. That's not ultimately what happened. But I think it's fair to question, why didn't they circle back? Even after having signed Romano, why were you in a position where you can only sign one reliever? And I guess it's budgetary concerns, but you're seeing the consequences of that play out to this point in the season. And Phillies are going to see the Blue Jays. They're in Toronto in early June. The Blue Jays, I forget when they come to Philly, but the Jeff Hoffman storyline is going nowhere, at least for this season. Even if Jordan Romano gets going, it's going to be, well, you could have had both of them. And I'm not sure what to say to that. I think they made a decision budget-wise they weren't going to invest in 2 guys. I thought Blake Trinan would have been an interesting guy. I didn't think he'd get 2 years, and he is hurt now. So you see the risk in investing in relievers. Devin Williams hasn't had a great start this season for the Brewers. Josh Hader's having a good season this year, but last year, in the first year of a big deal with the Astros, didn't have a great season. So there's unquestionably risk in investing in relievers, but you're also seeing the risk in not investing in enough guys, and you're really in a pickle right now. So the Phillies will have off on Thursday, and then they're going to head to Wrigley Field. They have a Friday 2:20 start, I believe. I don't know. I get the tradition of Wrigley. Friday should not be an afternoon game. Friday is a night game day of the week. I never liked that. Any event, Taijuan Walker's going to get the ball for the Phillies. He's got a 2.29 ERA. He left his last start a little bit early because of shoulder stiffness. By all accounts, with the extra day, the off day tomorrow, and then some treatment, he's going to be good to go for that start. Could potentially be his final time through the rotation, with the chance that Ranger Suarez returns the next time through. So something to watch there. Jesus Luzardo will start game 2. He's got a 2.08 ERA, tied for the league lead in WAR among pitchers. He's been tremendous. And then game 3 is going to be Aaron Nola, and he's 0-5 with the 6.43 ERA. I thought he was better Monday, and if you have a good right-handed reliever come in after him that diffuses the situation in the 7th inning, maybe things turn out differently. Instead, he ended up getting charged with a bunch of runs. So at the same time, Juan Soto missed hitting a titanic 3-run home run that would have made it a 5-0 game in the 2nd inning. So I guess you can't quibble too much about that. And the reality is he needs to get going. Location has been a problem. I don't concern myself as much with the velocity, but the thing is, when you don't throw 98, especially, you need movement. And too many times this year, his pitches have been center cut and they've been hit. I mean, if you have a 91-mile-an-hour fastball that doesn't have a ton of movement on it or deception, it's not going to go well. What he's been so successful at throughout the course of his career is getting run on pitches and making life difficult for hitters, and it hasn't worked to this point so far. I tend to think he's going to figure it out, but I'm not going to lie to people and say it's been good. It's been a struggle, and he's said as much. So they need him to get back on track starting now and just kind of erase April from his mind. For the Cubs, Pete Crow Armstrong is a guy to watch. 9 doubles and elite outfield defense. He's a platinum glove candidate. He's that good in center field. And then obviously Kyle Tucker leads all of baseball with 25 RBIs. So there's no rest here. The Cubs were a team the last few years. I thought they had a lot of good, but they lacked great. Well, Kyle Tucker's given them the great, and Pete Crow Armstrong is developing into a player that overall might be great. So this is not going to be like a series like the Marlins or the Rockies or whoever you want to insert there that's like a way to get back on your feet. This is a tough team. They've played well thus far. They're probably going to be a playoff team, and the Phillies are going to have to turn things around this weekend at Wrigley Field. And if not, it's going to get into a point of the season where they're maybe below 500 in May, which is not a spot where you want to be. So lots to consider. Not a good series in New York, and they need better in Chicago. For now, I'm Tim Kelly. Check out onpattison.com. I'll talk to you guys next time.